Today I'm going to be going over Surds Part 1. I'm going to be going over multiplying, dividing, and simplifying surds. So first of all, what is a surd? A surd is when we have the square root of a number, such as 75, and our answer isn't a whole number. So we would have some decimal numbers. So let's say we have the square root of 9. We know that the square root of 9 is equal to 3 because 3 times 3 gives you 9. Therefore, we know that the root of 9 is not a surd. So now that we know what a surd is, how do we multiply them together? So, to multiply surds, it's through these two formulas. The root of x times the root of y gives you the root of x times y, or root of xy. A root x times b root y gives you ab root xy. So first of all, before I explain this, I just want to make a note of these. Sometimes we can have whole numbers, such as 3, and next to them a root, such as root 2, and what this basically means is 3 times root 2. Similar to how 3x is equal to 3 times x. So, on to our first equation over here. What this basically means is, if we have, for example, root 3 times root 2, you just multiply the numbers inside the surd together. So that's going to be equal to root 3 times 2, which is equal to root 6, and that's your answer. Now, if the surd has a whole number next to it, so let's say 5 root 8, and then we multiply it by another surd that has a whole number next to it, let's say 7 root 6. What we basically do here is we multiply the numbers outside the surd, so that would equal to 5 times 7, and then inside the surd, we multiply the numbers together. So 8 times 6, and all of that is equal to 35 root 48. Now something important to know, which isn't really that necessary, is if we have, for example, root y times root y, that's going to be equal to y. So what this basically means is, if we have a surd such as root 3, and we times it by itself, our answer is going to be the number inside the surd. Because logically speaking, root 3 times root 3 is equal to root 9, and we know that root 9 is equal to root 3. Now it's your turn. Have a go at these 3 questions. If you're going to try to solve these questions, make sure to pause because I will say the answer right now. Okay, so let's answer these 3 questions. The first one, nice and simple. You just multiply the numbers inside the root. So this is equal to root 2 times 4, which is equal to root 8. On to the second one. We have 5 root 7 times 9 root 1. So we just multiply the numbers outside the surd together, and then multiply the numbers inside the surd together. So this is equal to 5 times 9 root 7 times 1, which is equal to 45 root 7. On to the third one. Again, nothing really special. Multiply the numbers outside the surd together, and then multiply the numbers inside the surd together. So, we have 16 root 4. Now, if the question asks you to simplify fully, something important is root 4 over here we know is equal to 2. And we've covered that when there's a number outside the surd, what this basically means is it's that number multiplied by the surd. So all of this basically equals to 16 times 2. We know that the answer to this is 32. So now that we've done multiplying surds, how can we divide them? It's basically the exact same way as multiplying surds, except you just divide. So, look at these 2 formulas. These 2 formulas basically sum up how to divide surds. So if we have root a divided by root b, that's just equal to root a divided b. So what this basically means is, let's say we have root 9 divided by root 3. So we know that root 9 isn't a surd, but we'll just continue on for the sake of it. So what this basically means is root 9 divided by 3, which is equal to root 3, and that's your answer. That was the craziest voice crack of my life. On to the second formula. If we have x root a divided by y root b. Basically, you divide the numbers outside and then you divide the numbers inside. So let's say we have 16 roots 8 divided by 2 root 2. So what this basically means is 16 divided by 2 and then 8 divided by 2 inside the surd. So all of that is equal to 8 root 4. And again, if they ask you to simplify fully, you have to turn the root 4 into a 2, and then 8 times 2, which is equal to 16. Alright, now it's your turn. Have a go at these 3 questions and try to find their answers. If you're going to solve these questions, pause the video from now, because I will answer the questions right now. Let's cover the answers to these 3 questions. First one, same thing that we've covered again and again. This is just equal to 18 divided by 3 all under a root, and all of this is equal to root 6. The second question, again, nothing different, just divide the numbers outside the surd and then divide the numbers inside the surd. So all of this is equal to 10 divided by 2, and then inside the surd is 8 divided by 2. All of this is equal to 5 root 4. If the question asks you to simplify fully, you turn the root 2 into a 2. So all of this is basically 5 times 2, which is equal to 10. Now I'm always saying to only do this if the question asks you to simplify fully. However, I do highly recommend doing this because sometimes even if the question doesn't tell you to simplify fully, you will lose marks because you haven't simplified it. And then the third question, root 2 divided by root 2. You can kind of answer this in 2 ways. You can either say just simply 1, because we know that any number divided by itself is 1 at all times. Or you can take this into a genuine surd division way and do root 2 divided by root 2, which is equal to surd 2 divided by 2, which is equal to root 1. So root 1, I guess it's somehow the same thing as 1. I'm not really sure. But basically, you can either answer it this way or this way. Alright, here's where surds can get a little bit tricky. We've covered multiplying and dividing surds. And now we're going to do simplifying surds. What I mean by simplifying surds is if we have a big surd like 75, how can we turn this so that it's in a more simplified form? So the way to do this is you split up the surd into 2. One has to be a surd, such as let's say root 3, and the other has to be a whole number put into surd form. So let's say the root of 25, which is also equal to 5. And these numbers have to multiply together to give you that number. So let me re-explain this with another surd. Let's say we have root 100. The way to simplify this is we split it up into 2. One has to be a surd, so let's say root 5, and the other has to be a whole number as a surd. So let's say root 25 again, which is equal to 5. And these have to multiply together to give you that number. So root 75 over here. We know that 25 times 3 gives you 75. So root 25 times root 3 gives you root 75. After you do that, you turn the root of the square number into the whole number. So basically, after you split up the surd into the root of a square number and another surd that multiply together to give you that number, firstly, you turn the root of the square number into its whole number. So root 25 would turn into 5. And then you chuck the surd at the bottom. So you have 5 times root 3, which is written as 5 root 3. And that is how you simplify a surd. I'll do another example right now. So another example would be root 32. If they ask you to simplify the surd, same thing. Step 1, you split the surd into 2 numbers. One, which is a surd, so for example, let's say root 2, and the other, the root of a square number, so let's say root 16. Then make sure they multiply together to give you that surd. So root 16 times root 2 gives you root 32. Step 3. Turn the root of the square number into its whole number. So root 16 is equal to 4. Step 4. Chuck the multiplication and the other surd to the bottom. So 4 times root 2. And then all of that, just merge them together and you have 4 root 2. And that is the simplified way of root 32. I'll do one more example as this lesson specifically is pretty tricky. So let's say we have root 128. Step 1, split the surd into 2. Step 2, one of the numbers have to be a surd. So let's say we have root 2. And then step 3, add your root square number. So let's say root 64. And then make sure they multiply together to give you that surd. So root 64 times root 2 does give me root 128. Step 3. Change the root square number into the whole number. So root 64 is equal to 8. And then chuck the multiplication sign and the surd at the bottom and then merge them together. So 8 root 2 is the simplified form of root 128. Now it's your turn. Have a go at these 2 questions on simplifying surds. If you're going to attempt these questions, pause the video from now because I will answer them right now. Okay, let's have a go at these 2 questions. The first one, root 50. Step 1, separate root 50 into 2 numbers. One which is a surd, so let's say we have root 2, and the other a square number into surd form, so root 25. And then make sure they multiply together to give you that surd. So yes, root 25 times root 2 gives me root 50. Step 3. Change the root square number into the whole number. So root 25 is equal to 5, and then just chuck the multiplication and the root 2, and then just merge them together. So therefore, the simplified form of root 50 is 5 root 2. Question 2, root 80. Step 1, separate the surd into 2. One is a surd, so let's say root 5, and the other is the root of a square number, so let's say root 16. And then make sure they multiply together to give you that surd. So yes, root 16 times root 5 gives me root 80. Step 3, change the root square number into the whole number. So root 16 is equal to root 4, then chuck the multiplication and the other surd, then merge them together. Therefore, the simplified version of root 80 is 4 root 5. Now this is going to be all for this part. On the next part, we're going to be covering adding, subtracting, and rationalizing surds. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've understand the basic laws of surds. I'll see you on the next video, and goodbye.